Hey everyone, welcome into this 411 reaction video here on our 411 Mania YouTube channel. I am Blake Lovell, and let's discuss one of the reports of the day. As we know, the news in professional wrestling never stops. But let's discuss one of the big reports of the day, which was it was kind of a combine where you had Fightful Select as well as Brian Alvarez was the one that reported that it's going to be, and I'm reading this as we go through it. Bruce Prichard and Vince McMahon, according to Brian Alvarez, are going to be the ones that are going to be producing NXT once it makes its actual live show return on September the 14th. Fightful Select added that members of the NXT roster have not yet been informed of that particular decision, and that neither Vince or Bruce were at the tapings, at the most recent set of tapings for NXT, and that there still though seems to be something to this when you look at some of these reports. And of course, now that you've added this element to this, as well as first you have the logo that I think drew quite a strong response, is probably the best way to put it. Strong response in one particular direction. I think some enjoyed it, some liked it, some not so much, but it is clear that the NXT revamp is official, and the NXT revamp is definitely in full swing right now as we look at the new logo, and with the possibility now that this is going to be something that on a weekly basis, on a live show, is going to be produced by Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard. Now, the people that are concerned about this, I think understandably, because I think there are a lot of people who already think that the 5 hours of live television that WWE does each week with Raw and SmackDown, that's not even counting potentially a 3 or 4 hour pay-per-view on the weekend, which, you have one of those each month. That's a lot for Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard creatively to juggle. Yes, there's a writing team. Yes, there are other people who help out in that area, but it is pretty clear at this point that Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard are the ones driving the ship here when it comes to creative in WWE, and not just on Raw and SmackDown, not just the main roster anymore, but now we're potentially looking at that when it comes to NXT as well. And I think there's going to be quite an interesting couple weeks once this actual revamp gets started. I think that's where you're going to look at this and realize that this is not the NXT that we once knew. It's clear, we look at some of the reports about WWE's making the hiring changes and the type of talent that they look for, and all of that. I know Nick Khan's comments certainly caused quite a stir about WWE potentially not pursuing, independent wrestlers, any talent, those kind of wrestlers anymore. That it's so different. And again, I think now when you add the Vince and Bruce element to it, that is going to be something that a lot of people, it's probably going to pique curiosity. I'll give them that. Somewhat similar to the Charlotte Flair Nia Jax match, which I discussed on the recent episode of the 411 on Wrestling podcast, which, by the way, you can find a link to that in the description. But there's going to be interest because I think people are interested to see what is this actually going to look like coming out of, this potential report, that it is going to be perhaps, a Vince McMahon, Bruce Prichard driven show now for NXT. And with the 5 hours every single week that they already do, potentially adding that up to 8 or 9 hours with a pay-per-view in there, add 2 more with NXT and the creative situations that now they're going to have to put themselves in on another day each week. Now, there's also certainly the possibility that this is something where Vince McMahon has perhaps been, even more, into this recently and trying to maybe steer things in a certain direction, knowing that these changes were coming. And perhaps we've already seen some of these, magic touches of Vince McMahon on NXT. But this is going to be completely different. I think that's what we know now. We didn't exactly know what the specifics were going to be of this whole entire NXT revamp, but now it's pretty clear. Like, this is going to be a completely different feel, a completely different look, and perhaps from a creative standpoint, if you go from, let's say, Triple H, and so are the ones doing the bulk of the creative work here, if you're going to now turn that over to Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard, how different is that going to look with NXT? And I think just the logo changing it as dramatically as they did, they could not have said any better that this is not going to be your normal NXT. This is going to be something different. Even though there will be some of the same talent there, they're going to make this what they want to make it. And clearly, that is going to be Vince McMahon, Bruce Prichard, and we will see if this actually winds up to be the case with these two taking over. But it's Vince McMahon's company, WWE. There should be no surprise at this point that Vince McMahon wants his hands on everything. And I think when you look at sort of the most recent episode of Raw, I think there's a great example. A week ago, they advertised 3 matches for Raw. We got approximately 0 of those matches that actually took place on Raw. That is how quickly and how swift things are changing on a week-to-week basis now in WWE. And of course, if you read 411mania.com, if you read anything else, you get on social media, there's a report probably monthly now about Vince rewriting the script the day of, lots of changes, all those things. How does that affect NXT now? Does that carry over into NXT? And remember, they're booking a 3-hour Raw the day before, and now potentially you're going straight into NXT on Tuesdays. What does that booking process look like? I will say that I'm probably a good thing I'm not in the room for that, and I would be very curious to know for the people who are going to be in the room on that. That is going to be quite an entertaining process, I would think, in some particular weeks with this. So that is really, that's it with NXT. This was sort of the added layer to where if you were questioning what exactly is NXT going to look like now, here it is. This is it. New logo. Everything's changing from the top down. It's from the people who are making the creative decisions to the look. Everything is essentially changing aside from, like we said, probably some of the talent you're still going to see there. There's going to be new talent added into the mix. It is the new era of NXT in WWE. But there's some thoughts on that. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for a lot more of these short reaction videos on the big news of the day in the world of professional wrestling. Check that out. We'll also have the links to everything else in the show notes. So thanks for watching this video. And again, be sure to subscribe and check out everything we got going on over at 411mania.com.